Hi everyone, welcome to Psychedelic Conversations. This is your hub for engaging in deep conversations around serotonergic hallucinogens that alter perceptions, affect cognitive processes, induce mystical and spiritual experiences. Enjoy the show. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Psychedelic Conversations podcast. I have a very special guest with me today, Jenalle Dion. Welcome, Jenalle. So good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Just a quick background. Jenalle Dion is doing things beyond her age, and I founded her on LinkedIn when I saw the Kickstarter of a journal. So I can't wait to dive into that as well. But just to give a bit of a background for Jenalle, she founded the Wakeful Travel, the ceremony companion company working with seekers, retreat centers, psychedelic clinics, and mindful product brands to provide tools that aid in transformation and self-exploration. Her journals help to reflect your own wisdom back to you, integrate profound experiences, and put a plan in place for a lasting change. And that's exciting. She is also the head of content at Third Wave. When she's not working in this space, she's always snowboarding and adding more plants. I can see a beautiful plant behind you. That's so amazing. So yeah, really excited to dive into the conversation with Jenalle today. So Jenalle, please walk us through your background. How did you come into this space and your relationship with psychedelics?
Totally. It's always funny when people ask this question because I never know how far back to go. So maybe we'll start with, I guess I was first introduced to, I guess it's not really a psychedelic, but MDMA when I was in my early 20s. And I think that's how a lot of people start in the party scene. But it wasn't until I took LSD in the forest with my friends on a camping trip in Jasper that I really connected to psychedelics in a more intentional way. And that led me to making some pretty big life choices. So I moved from Alberta in Canada to a magical little ski town in British Columbia. And if you've heard of the town or know it, a lot of synchronicities and just things happen there for people. There's all sorts of stories about the quartz and how it's under this big bed of quartz and the location. And I don't know, it's just a magical place. So I ended up going from being a hairstylist to a holistic nutritionist, moving to Nelson, and then getting a job at this retreat startup called Retreat Guru, who are a global organization, and they sell software to retreat centers all around the world. And then they also have a marketplace with a very strong focus on ayahuasca. And it was the most strangest and interesting job I think I will ever have, because before I joined that team, I didn't really have a community to be vulnerable with. I dove headfirst into working with psychedelics in an intentional way when I joined that team with the co-founders of the company and my team members. And it was just really beautiful to be able to be at work doing something that you're so passionate about and provide connecting people to these transformative experiences, but at the same time doing so much work on yourself. And so I guess my first plant medicine that I worked with in an intentional way was ayahuasca. I went down to Costa Rica on a work trip, and I got to visit 20 different retreat centers. And then I ended up at, well, not ended up, I booked a 7-day ayahuasca retreat there. And from that, I was like, oh my goodness, like what just happened? Like I was blown away by the experience and connecting to community in that vulnerable way. And so from there, I continued to work with other medicines, just went deeper along my healing journey, and healing that inner child from, my parents' divorce and moving around as a kid and other things. But yeah, then COVID came. COVID came. They let go 13 people in the organization, and that was really challenging for me because I felt as if I'd kind of lost like a part of my family in a way. And I was, at the same time, I had been working on a mindful travel journal, and I was ready to launch that. And so I just like went to Peru and lived in community with my coworkers for 6 weeks. And then I traveled around Christmas, went all over Peru, lived in Guatemala, worked remotely, like went to Costa Rica, went to Vision Music Festival, probably the biggest party before the world shut down completely in the whole world, and got home 2 weeks later, lost my job, was like so disappointed that I had like just invested all this time in this travel journal. And it was the absolute worst timing to launch a travel product. And so I went inward and was like, well, what could I create that supports people and their transformations, even though travel has been so transformative for me. So have plant medicines. And so I went to more of like the internal travel kind of side of things. And it's taken a little bit of time, but now I have an integration journal and a microdosing journal. And then, I've been at Third Wave as head of content for the last year as well, and just launched on Kickstarter. So that's a kind of a bit about my story. And I look forward to sharing these tools with as many people as I can.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. As you were telling about the travel journal, I was just thinking, okay, now the COVID just hit the world. There's this pandemic globally. You can't travel. So I was just thinking the same thing, travel inwards.
Yeah.
It's a representation of the work of going inwards. So that's so beautiful. So what are the listeners, if they were to purchase? I know still talk to us about the Kickstarter as well, because that's really interesting to hear. You don't want to be promoting or using any of the social media platforms like Facebook. So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. So I was actually meant to launch the travel journal on Kickstarter before, and I had just done a lot of research, and it seemed like a platform that would support this alternative way of thinking, and not just get shut down like we're seeing online right now, like Facebook and Instagram. They're turning off people's accounts, and like thousands and thousands of followers are just being lost in this. And it's a tricky space to navigate for sure. And so with the Kickstarter, when I launched, because I've been so involved in the psychedelic space for the last 5 years, I've had the opportunity to really like make these incredible connections with my partners. And that spans from anywhere from like retreat marketplaces to centers to psychedelic clinics to coaches to podcasters to mushroom supplement brands, like everything in between. And so it would not be where it is today. I'm just looking at the other screen at like almost 11,000 Canadian, if it weren't for that network sharing the campaign out, really. And I'm so grateful for that, because I'd rather work on, is promoting this in a natural way. And it just, to me, it seemed kind of like conflicting, putting a bunch of money into these organizations that aren't really doing that great for the world and collecting people's personal data constantly. And so that was kind of the choice that I made, is really honing in on the relationships that I have.
Mm, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So we'll share the links to your Kickstarter as well, and more details about the journals if people wanted to support and maybe get their hands on one as soon as they launch.
Yeah.
When are you looking to launch them?
They're already live on the Kickstarter now. So
Mhm.
the journals, the two journals, the Psychedelic Integration Journal and the 6-week Intention Journal, which is for microdosing, and they are available until December 4th. And then my amazing artist, inside of the journals, there's color therapy pages. And so these are like outlines of just beautiful plant medicine artwork, and you can color them in if you get a journal. But we've actually he's been working on digitally coloring in these pieces. And so you can also get the prints. They're gorgeous. I'm so excited to release more of those. So there are a few other add-ons too that are available on there.
Amazing. Great. Exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Canada. What's happening in Canada? Because especially with the mushrooms decriminalization and everything, there's a thriving community of pro psychedelic, people, medicines.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going? If you can just tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So I recently moved to Vancouver, and I'm really lucky because a lot is happening here. We're really like being the leaders in the space for pushing towards legalization for therapy and decriminalization. And so I think that Vancouver is kind of following suit of Oregon and Denver in that way for psilocybin, especially. It's funny, like even in Vancouver, we now have mushroom dispensaries. So there's kind of just this loophole gray area where people are, they're able to sell mushrooms online and in these shops and not really be penalized. And so it's a really exciting time. Like even last night, there's all of these networking groups popping up. And so I attended, or no, 2 nights ago, I attended a women's in psychedelics Vancouver meetup. And so it wasn't just women that work in psychedelics, but just who've had these experiences. And I remember one girl said, I went to Zoomers, this dispensary, and it was her first time, and she drank this drink, and she just had one of the most profound experiences in her life and really experienced that divine feminine energy as if she quote unquote was this like mothership. And I just thought like, wow, like what an incredible opportunity in space and time for this to all be happening. Like Theracell is based here, and they're a nonprofit, and they're really they started with working with the government to provide psilocybin therapy to cancer patients who were near the end of their life. The list for those kind of organizations is just increasing and going on, and the work it's so needed. And I'm happy that this is the place, like this is my home that it's really thriving in. So yeah.
I think just observing it from this end of the pond and across the pond here in London, US and Canada seems to be leading the renaissance, so to speak. And also we have an amazing team at Imperial College where they're doing a lot of studies now. So from being in this space for some number of years now, what do you see happening right now? It's going crazy all over the world. What do you think is what's kicked it off? I mean, especially I know pandemic had a lot of impact in that exponential growth and spread, I would say. What are your thoughts? What kicked it off, or what triggered it, do you think?
There's a few things. So I really do think that Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, was an influence in that for sure. And also really helped to peak baby boomers' interest in this, as well as the organizations that have been kind of pioneering this space. They're, pushing out these studies on PTSD, and everyone is so passionate about our veterans and taking care of them. And so it's just, I feel like it's all kind of happening with the research and more education and the acceptance and the stigma breaking down. I guess it's at the same time, I think people are like so sick and tired of being sick and tired. So they're looking for alternative ways, and it's really is like spreading through I don't want to be all cheesy and say the mycelium network, but that's like what's happening. So once your life is the power of psychedelics bring on this incredible transformation, right? For all types, physical ailments, mental health conditions, creativity, flow state. So the fact that psychedelics can help in all aspects, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and then be that those stories can now be told, and then they blow up. And I think that's what's happening right now, is because there is scientific evidence that these actually work. They actually can change your life. That's why it's blowing up, because people are seeing these crazy results, and it's spreading, and more studies are being developed, and more education is coming out. And then the FDA regulation, like FDA approval, is happening. And not to say that I'm for FDA just for everything, but I would say decriminalization, taking into consideration the ethical and sustainable aspects of that to protect, indigenous cultures that have been using these medicines before us, and the sustainability of the plants. But it's just it's something else, and it's
It's an
I don't know if that answered it. I just feel like I just everything and all over the place. But
it's definitely an interesting time. And also there are lovely, organizations like Chacruna.net, and they're just really looking after and sort of supporting the indigenous people in this space as well, their traditions.
I actually so I donate 1% to Chacruna for every journal sold. I love that organization. They're doing beautiful work, and two, I hope that every organization that comes into this space, like, I hope that it doesn't go into what cannabis looked like, and that we can really give back to the wisdom holders in this space, because that's super important.
Yeah. Earlier you said, in the beginning of our conversation, you said this, apart from all the recreational exploration, there is one time you took the LSD intentionally, and that changed everything. So could you speak to that as well? Because one of the reasons that I'm also having these conversations about psychedelic medicines, or substances, some might call it, is to bring awareness in a way that is objective, and is not sort of, not to just look at them as a panacea, but also talk about the harm reduction. I feel like you have positioned yourself as, your journals will definitely be one of those tools in terms of harm reduction, and really going into the experiences with mature approach, maybe even, like you said, intentional. So that makes the difference, right? So let's speak to that. What happens, because we also know that psychedelic substances are very sort of easy to be exploited and used for recreational purposes, and there may be some people who use it for so many years but still not really getting it, not really integrating it. So what would you say to that, especially now that you have your journals out there?
And I do want to be like clear that I think that you can work with psychedelics for in a recreational setting, with intention as well. So as long as you're not trying to like escape escape these things and taking it in the right setting. Like for example, that LSD experience I had, it was, it was with friends. It wasn't like we were all like, hey, let's do a whole ceremony for like 10 hours. It was more so like, okay, we're in a safe position. There was 2 of us that hadn't taken LSD before. We made sure that we set up camp. We had food prepared. We had the right clothing. Like we had all of our beds set up. We were not driving anywhere, and then when it happened, like when I started to feel the medicine come on, it was just, for me, it was just completely spiritual, in the sense that all of my hallucinations were just Buddha everywhere, Buddha mandalas, everything Buddha, and the Northern Lights came out that night. And it was just like one of those experiences that you'll never forget. But in terms of like having a tool to integrate that, like I didn't really know what integration was, or that it was important. I was definitely not that woman that like had this amazing experience after drinking a mushroom drink, and then the next day or like a week later she went to this psychedelics meetup. Like that that is like very intentional to know or to want to do that. So afterwards, like the journal can really help you. Even what, like I'm the type of person to write a lot when I'm on medicine, and so even if I had that to like take some time away when I was, if you're feeling the effects come on too strongly, I would have loved to have a journal that was guided, that I could just simply answer some prompts and to like really connect and go inward. And then when you're ready, like go back out. But yeah. And as well, I would say it's not about the navigation and as well the preparation. It's also about, the integration. It's also about preparation. So before sitting in an ayahuasca ceremony, I didn't really know what questions to ask before I booked at that specific center. I didn't know, like, luckily I booked a center with medical doctors and safety protocols, and they were very well known. But if I didn't have that, I didn't work in the space, for someone that's just starting that journey, they might not know the questions to ask. So, there are pages in the journal that are prompts for like, how many people are sitting in ceremony? Because I sat with 45 people my first time, and that's a lot of energy.
Wow.
What are the safety protocols that the center has in place? What lineage is the facilitator from? All of these questions really do shape your experience and how you can integrate after. So I think that the journal can really help with that, and just knowing what questions to really ask.
Yeah, that's great. Wow, 45 people in one ceremony. That's a lot.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
4 ceremonies in a row, like, and that was a small group. Usually there's 100. So
Wow.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, how many facilitators do you need for such a big group? Like how many people taking care of
I
this?
believe there were like, I want to say like 6 or 7 for 44 people.
Wow. How do you feel now that you know more about the medicines? Do you think it should be less smaller groups? Do you think, because some people are not good at being in a bigger groups, maybe they need a private session even, right?
Yeah, right. I think that it can be overwhelming with that many people, your first few ceremonies, for sure. Like ayahuasca is an interesting one where every time you drink is different, right? It's not like knowing the effects of specific other medicines. And so I would say a good size to start with would be like between 7 people to highest like 20 people. More than that can be, just overwhelming for sure, especially if you're super empathetic and you're absorbing other energies and emotions and haven't learned how to properly hold space for yourself and protect that that energy around you.
Yeah, Yeah, but thanks to you and a lot of people in the space thinking like yourself, that I know they're doing so much work in bringing in, how to prepare, what questions to ask, where to go, what centers to pick, and also I think Third Wave launched a list of retreats that are really respected and provide, safe settings. So that's really, really great. I think there is a growing acknowledgement that now we need to be very, very careful, take responsibility, and all those things,
Yes.
right?
Yes, like as much as you want that authentic ayahuasca retreat with one shaman in the middle of the jungle, like we got to be careful, because that's when you can get exploited, and it doesn't happen to everyone. But yeah, it's important to do your research for sure.
Yeah. So
and ask your friends for recommendations, or find these platforms like Third Wave's directory or other reputable organizations in the space, and really make sure that they're vetting properly as well.
Yeah, this is what makes me excited, because I now see so many content out there by these respected organizations, just continually supporting with harm reduction, what to do, how to get yourself ready. That being said, let's talk about your role at the Third Wave, and how did that come about, and what are the things that what does it look like to be head of the content of such a company? Because it's super fast growing and expanding, and I watch that as well, and I'm a big fan of their work, so your work, and all you guys doing amazing.
Awesome, thank you. So that started shortly after I lost my position at the previous company. It was funny. It's just funny how the universe works, because the day I got let go, I was meant to have a call with someone from Third Wave's team. And I think they figured out that happened with all of everything. And a few weeks later, I got a connect on LinkedIn from Paul, and we chatted, and we were super in line, and I came on with them as a social media manager and affiliate and partnerships manager. And then with my background in SEO content, I quickly got promoted to head of content, and it's been so fun the last year, like being able to do something I'm so passionate about again, and also having them support me in my side business as well. Like really, it's so intertwined, the relationships and the vision there. So in terms of like offerings, so Third Wave has tons of free education, psychedelic guides, microdosing guides, tons and tons of articles that we push out every month. We have a podcast, a newsletter called Frequency, and a microdosing course. We actually just soft launched our mushroom kit and guide. So if you're in the States, you can learn how to grow mushrooms from home, which is super exciting. And then our coaches focused offering is called the Coaching Certification Program. And that is a non-clinical training. So there are a lot of trainings in the space for therapists to add psychedelics into their practice, but not a lot for coaches. And so we really want to work with people who already have a established coaching practice and teach them how to weave in these medicines into their practice and into their clients' lives, so that they can have that impact. And so we ran our first one a few months ago, and then at the end of it, there's an in-person retreat. And so everyone, you do the curriculum across a few months, and then you go and you get to meet all these people that you were just studying with. And it was so awesome. And so now the next one actually launches the end of November, so this month. And we're working on another kind of course. I don't know how much I can speak about it yet, but it'll be another offering to those who are wanting to work with psychedelics on a deeper level and potentially want to become a coach.
Wow, so much is happening.
So, and the directory, as you mentioned.
yes. That's my favorite, because I'm always so keen on people researching, for safe places and recommendations. So that's really, really the key, the way I look at it. And so there's so much going on. Looks like it. How from where you are standing, do you see a lot of people coming to the education, like coaches? I think I saw an article where it said so many clinicians, counselors, coaches, and everybody now wants to add the psychedelic substances as in their toolbox for their clients. So do you see so many people are interested in taking up these educational courses?
Mm-hmm. I do. I think that once you've had these profound experiences and like see the change that it's made in your life, then oftentimes people want to offer that and give that back to other people in the world. So yes, I think it's going to be, this is the future of not only like mental health, but peak performance and flow state and creativity and accessing, leveling up your life, really. And with Third Wave, like the first coaching training certification program we launched, it sold out in 24 hours. So there was a ton of interest, and not to say that we took everyone that applied into the program, because we really want to make sure that who we're working with and we're training is coming at this from a place in the heart and supporting the vision that everyone should have access to these medicines, and making sure that we're doing it in a safe and intentional way too.
Yeah, that's definitely key. I was just going to talk to you about the experience that I'm also observing with people who are microdosing mushrooms. In for years and years in therapy and counseling and even clinical psychotherapy, there is always this. It's a sensitive. It's a job that really requires, a lot of work. The therapist must do a lot of work on themselves. There's so much going on, because we, sometimes in this space with my colleagues, because my background is holistic therapy, and we talk about these transference, the projections, because, and we always talk about, even in the psychedelic space, the facilitators also having that projection and transference, and there is this notion of not really being able to hold safe space, because the person who's holding space not doing so much of their own work.
Right.
And this is so important. Again, comes back to therapy. So one of the things that's really excites me is I have noticed that when the medicine is in the center of the healing process, if we can get it right, the facilitator just needs to hold the space. They don't need to do anything. They don't need to say anything. They don't need to, in fact, they don't even need to guide anybody. They just need to hold the healing presence, and the medicine does the work in a way. And this is exciting. So this takes away all of the risk of, if the therapist has complexities within themselves, they haven't done the work, or they have this, deceiving side to them, and they can't see their own blind spots. So now that's kind of almost eliminated. And now there's only the medicine and the person who's there to do the work. And all you can do is guide. So what would you say about those kind of approaches to medicine? Because we are going to get so many people coming in just for the hype, but not really interested in their own work, because it's hard, right? Because you've been in this field, you know what it takes to do the work.
Yeah, I would say I agree to a certain extent, but for example, like I was just at Meetdelic in Las Vegas, a psychedelic conference, and many of the speakers, there's a present theme for sure with the speakers. And so Aubrey Marcus talked about how he had all these profound experiences and he knew what to do and these insights and downloads, and he knew exactly what he was going to do. And he was like, yes, I'm going to change my life. And then he didn't do any of it. He didn't do the work afterwards. He didn't integrate the knowledge. And I think that I really resonate with what Chris Ryan said, that psychedelics aren't tools. You use tools, right? So this is involving a relationship with the medicine. And he told his story about how again and again, when he was younger, he would work with these different medicines and in really bad settings with not like ideal situations. And again, he learned that, psychedelics are to be respected. And so when we look at the seeker doing the work in ceremony and really like receiving what they can, and that guide or those guides holding space, yes, to a certain extent, like it is about that person, but some people don't know how to do the work afterwards. So that guide or facilitator either needs to be trained in that to educate them on how to do the work afterwards, or connect them with someone that can, like an integration coach or therapist that can help them do that work. Or provide materials or resources on like, this is really important. You should go to this website. Like, here's this journal, like things like that. There's lots of apps out there. So yeah, I would say it's integral. We see these lessons happen all the time where it's like, oh, that came up again. And like, oh, why does this always happen? And it's like, well, that's a lesson being presented to you. And the medicine really amplifies that and can act as a mirror in that sense. And so if there's a lesson that comes up a year later, and then it comes up 5 years later, and then it comes up 10 years later, what are we not doing so that lesson doesn't continue to show up? And I think that really doing the action steps, we don't need to keep learning, like to keep seeing these lessons. I wrote a closing ceremony the other day for Third Wave's newsletter, and it said, what if journaling just helps us turn up the volume? So it really is just like an amplifier to these lessons so that we know what steps to take to put a plan in place for lasting change.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts on that.
Definitely the journals are the way forward. 100% agree with you. I think
maybe not just the journals, but I'm stoked that you think that.
I do because one of the things that, especially the microdosing psilocybin, seem to happen in people who use or explore it. I've seen they continually write like crazy. There's this urge of just writing their insights and revelations, and they really keep a notebook. I think that's so great. And there's it's an evidence that people want to write a lot. And there's also this thing about using a pen and a paper, using a physical journal. It helps you step away from the technology and your phone.
Oh my goodness.
You could just, they said this is also connects your your brain to your mind to your hand, doing all this physical actual writing with the pen. So
oh my gosh, yes, there are so many things that you said that just really hit the nail on the head there. Like, I'm so passionate about writing out your thoughts, and there's already science behind the power of journaling to process your emotions, to increase your cognitive behavior, your memory, all of it. And then we pair that with a badass tool, relationship, should I say. We have that relationship with the psychedelics, and you combine the journaling tool with the relationship of psychedelics, and holy, like, what magic can happen then, and then what if we incorporate microdosing into our integration protocol so that it's not like we just had this, we were just blasted open with plant medicine, and like then we step away from that medicine. What if we incorporate it in tiny amounts into our life and really like continue to process and continue to notice those patterns and continue to do the work? Because I truly believe that healing is a never-ending process and that we're always evolving and always going. But going back to what you said about, yeah, like analog tools, oh my goodness, they're being forgotten. Yeah, they are. And I talk to people all the time because so many people have reached out and asked me, like, are you going to do an app? Are you going to have an app? And I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't want to say a hard no or a hard, like, I don't really know yet. But I think, especially with COVID, we're all like struggling with Zoom fatigue right now. We are on our phones. Like my phone just went off. We're on our phones. It's dinging all the time. That's so funny that just happened.
Just talking about it. Synchronicities are crazy.
We do our banking on our phone. We are checking our email. We're communicating on our phone. We're doing task management, grocery lists. We're dating on our phone. Like we're doing everything on our phone, and we have an addiction just in general. Like we're all addicted to our phone, I feel. And so it's so needed to disconnect from technology to reconnect with ourselves using these analog tools and journaling prompts and all of it. So thanks for bringing that up, because I'm like super passionate about that, as you know.
And this is journaling is one of the tools that I always recommend in the holistic therapy space. It's just, there is a power in, as you put your thoughts and emotion, as you put your thoughts down on the paper, then the emotions surface up. Then there is this opportunity to sit with it, because, you know, we always talk about you got to heal it to feel it. So journaling is connected to so many things. Like we can probably do one whole episode just on that on its own. Oh
my gosh.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
So this is great. So give us a couple examples. What are the like from your pages of your journal, just to give an idea? What are you how are you structuring it, and what is it, like a daily thing, or do they need to create like a list or maybe like a routine? What is it?
Yeah. So the integration journal has 4 journeys in it. I call them journeys, not trips. I believe that we need to make a transition from the party language to more intentional language when we're speaking about working with these in an intentional way. So the trips that you document are actually in the travel journal as like actual world trips. So I just want to like clear that up. So the integration journal, there's four journeys. One is a longer journey, so it is assuming that you're going on maybe a trip and an actual trip to, you know, a retreat center across the world, or, you know, maybe farther away. And so that has like some templates from the Mindful Travel Journal, packing lists, reservations, and then all of the templates have similar kind of protocols. So there's preparation pages. You go through and you can, you know, have a ceremony packing list or journey packing list. There's pages to discover your intention. There's pages to, and those are reflective, tons and tons of different questions that you can reflect on, because I found it difficult to, you know, hone in on those when I first started working with medicine. As well, you can track the diet if there's a diet you're meant to go on before your spiritual practice, or any practice that can help you prepare before sitting. And then it goes into navigation. So there's a lot of like blank space to be creative. And you can journal while you're on the medicine or afterwards. There's sections to draw your experience. There are color therapy pages, like I mentioned before, and then integration pages. So, you know, different checklists to make sure that, like, you know, you're kind of doing the right practices afterward. Lots of free flow space again. There's actually pages for insights to come up later. Like sometimes there's a teaching that it just pops up like weeks and weeks later, so you can go back, and then pages to put, the action plan in place, and a resource list in the back that you can continue to add to. And so, yeah, that's the integration journal. And the intention journal is more so a protocol, or like a framework where you can go through that 6 weeks, the repeated templates again, color therapy again in there, but pages to document your insights along. You can track your dose. You can notice patterns. So really, tuning into what's coming up and getting that out on paper, and then seeing it. And like you said, like reflecting that wisdom back to you to make lasting change. Yeah.
Wow. That's so amazing. Yeah. This is so needed. Yeah, that's beautiful. And obviously these probably came through your own struggles from your own beginning of like not knowing where to go, where to get all this information. Isn't it amazing? You could just put it into a little packaging and just hand it over to people. Like, there you go, cuts all the work down.
Well, that's why I made it, because I remembered myself like after ceremony staring at this blank notebook, and I was just like, I have no idea what to write. Like, I had no clue. I didn't know where to start. And so the way I created it was I was just taking these blank journals, and I was drawing like thick lines and bold letters, and like trying to organize it in a way that made sense for my brain. And then when I spoke to other people working in the space and realized, oh, they're also struggling with the same thing that I am, I was like, okay, I need to make this. I need to make this product to help people. And I did, and it feels so good.
Glad you did.
Yeah, thanks.
So going forward, what's the future looking like for you and your Wakeful Travel business? And how will you be taking this work forward?
Yeah, sure. So what I've wanted to do for some time is, I can't get these journals out to as many people that need it as one person, right? And I'm actually partnering with someone who's going to be coming in on this with me, but we want to make these journals accessible for people. And the way that we can do that is by working with our partners and working with psychedelic organizations and conferences or different mindful brands in the space to be able to offer these. And like, the amount of times I've spoken to a coach or a therapist or a center who are like, oh, we've been thinking about doing a journal. It's just crazy. And so I'm like, well, I already have, I've already done a round of prints for the travel journal. I've worked with manufacturers. I have designers. I have artists. I have all this team. And so I'd like to, and I am starting to already work with different organizations to co-create a journal for their organization that reflects their protocols, their curriculum, their content, their voice, their art even, and package that all up nicely, put their logo on it or have both of our logos on it, and then be able to offer that to their audience. So it's a really it's a unique offering that saves them a ton of time in finding, especially right now there's a huge global supply chain tension and issue happening right now. And so, and there's lumber shortages, and there's a lot going on right now. And it's hard to find these suppliers and manufacturers. It's even hard to get paper right now. Yeah. So working with me makes it easy for them to kind of do the work that they are, so good at, and offer that to their retreat participants or whoever they're serving. And then I take the journal concept and create it and then they have this offering. So
Mm.
it's super exciting. I've had so much interest, and yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's wonderful to be able to co-create with other organizations. And like you said, yeah, make one for their branding and their voices and how they use. And yeah, exactly. Everybody has their own protocols and the way they approach to coaching with the medicine. So wonderful. That's lovely. And so as we're coming to the end of our conversation, just wanted to ask you, any last words of wisdom, anything that you'd like to share with our listeners, whether it's, with your experience or whether, anything that comes to mind?
I think right now I'm seeing a theme of it's a bit like there's so many people coming into the space, and I'd love to see more organizations and people wondering and being curious about how can we work together to co-elevate and co-create, rather than seeing each other as competition, because it's conflicting in the space. We're working in this beautiful space, but yet there's tension around. And so I just love to see more inclusivity and giving back, and really like living and breathing what these medicines are truly showing us. So I think that's
Yeah.
And if anyone wants to follow me on the channels, it's just at Wakeful Travel for Instagram and Facebook, and and then I'll drop we'll add the link to the Kickstarter.
Yeah, absolutely. And we would love to add your links, how they can connect with you. I love your LinkedIn page and everything you share there. And usually, to be honest, LinkedIn is not my go-to social media, but for some reason last few months something is happening also on LinkedIn. Maybe it's because of the algorithms, because I'm looking at psychedelic content lately, and
yes, that's all my LinkedIn is psychedelic content. And it's great. It's like the social now. You can choose who you follow, and it's like now this is all I want to see anyway. So I've had amazing success with LinkedIn and too. Yeah, if anyone wants to connect on there, it's just my name and Dion. So, but we'll spell it out properly because my name's spelled very uniquely.
Definitely, we'll put all the links down. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, keep going on LinkedIn. I'm really excited about how I don't want to be putting down any other social media platforms like Facebook, but I do like how LinkedIn is thriving right now. And I also love the idea that we are connected, whether it's a CEO of a really successful company or a little lay person who's trying to understand or at least explore and learn. They can all connect together and talk in the same thread. I thought that was so great. Yeah,
it's beautiful. Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like there is really mature and level-headed people on LinkedIn who spread the message on the psychedelic medicines also in a really, really proactive way, rather than just one-sided. And the center of the attention is always in education and information, which I love. So
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. It's been really great.
It's promising. Future seems promising, and please keep doing what you're doing, and thank you so much for the work. And as a young person coming into space, because we need to see a lot more young people coming in and really putting these this work and the effort in, so that this is how we're going to change especially the information, the education part. That's where my passion comes in, because I always see that many people are confused because there is lack of understanding and lack of resources, and you yourself and your organization doing amazing work. So thank you very much for all that.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all the work you're doing and spreading this. And video and audio right now are huge, right, for consuming content. And so, um, yeah, thanks for doing the work you do. And I look forward to collaborating and co-creating in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure we'll have you back for part 2 at some point to just track your progress and see where
I'd
you're
love that.
going. Yeah, great.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Jenalle. Such a pleasure to have you. Thanks. All the best with everything you're doing. And
Likewise.
yeah,
Thanks so
speak
much,
to you soon.
Susan. Yeah,
Thanks
you
everybody for tuning in. And if you guys are enjoying this or enjoy this conversation, do get in touch with Jenalle or myself. And as we said, we'll be sharing the links and the Kickstarter. So really excited. Drop your comments, connect with us, and keep the conversation going. Thank you for now. Bye. See you on the next one. Thank you so much for joining us. Psychedelic Conversations podcast is designed to educate, inform, and expand awareness. For more information, please head over to psychedelicconversations.com. You can also share with your friends or leave a review so that we can reach more people. You can also join us in our private Facebook group to keep the conversation going. This show is for information purposes only, and it is not intended to provide mental health or medical advice. Thanks for listening.